Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to gently explore how to rebuild trust in yourself after years of self doubt. If you're listening to this, chances are you've been through a lot. You might feel worn down from constantly second guessing yourself, always wondering if you're doing the right thing. I want you to know right from the start that you're not alone and there is a path forward. In this episode, we'll take things slowly and kindly. Think of it as sitting down with a trusted friend who understands what you're going through. Together, we'll look at why self doubt takes hold, how it affects your mind, and most importantly, how you can learn to trust yourself again. Before we begin, I invite you to get comfortable. If you can, find a quiet spot. Maybe take a gentle deep breath in and out. Let's create a safe, warm space for this conversation. There's no rush. This is your time to start healing that inner relationship with yourself. This is about you and helping you reconnect with the wise, confident self that's still inside you. Yes, it is still in there, even if it's buried under years of doubt. Alright, let's gently dive in, starting with where all the self doubt might have come from. If you've been struggling with self doubt for years, it didn't come out of nowhere. There are often deep psychological roots to why we lost trust in ourselves. Understanding those roots isn't about blaming anyone or dwelling onto the past. It's about making sense of your story so far. When we shine a light on these origins, it becomes easier to forgive ourselves for having self doubt and to begin healing. One common root lies in our early experiences. Maybe think about your childhood or teenage years. Were you in an environment that nurtured your confidence or one that planted seeds of doubt? Many people with chronic self doubt grew up with well meaning but critical parents, or in households where love felt conditional on performance. For instance, maybe you brought home a decent report card, but your parents still pointed out the one B among all the A's, or you tried to help with something and got scolded rather than being encouraged. Experiences like these, childhood emotional neglect or constant criticism, send a powerful message to a young mind. Your feelings and judgments aren't valid. Psychology experts note that when a child's emotional needs for validation aren't met, they learn to ignore or suppress their own feelings, which can erode self trust and lead to chronic self doubt. In short, if no one ever taught you to value your own feelings and decisions, it's not surprising that you grow into an adult who second guesses yourself at every turn. Societal and cultural factors can be roots of self doubt as well. Maybe you grew up in a culture of perfectionism, where anything else less than perfect was considered failure. Research has found that striving for unrealistic, perfectionist standards often underpins self doubt. If you always felt like you had to be flawless to be accepted, then of course you'd start doubting yourself, right? Because perfection is unattainable, and being human means sometimes making mistakes. Similarly, societal expectations, like the pressure to have a certain kind of career, body, or lifestyle, can make us feel perpetually not good enough. We internalize those voices that say, you should be more like this or that, and gradually, those voices become our own inner critic. Traumatic or toxic experiences later in life can also severely damage self trust. Consider toxic relationships, for example, whether with a romantic partner, a friend, or even a boss. If you've been in a relationship where you were frequently blamed, doubted, or gaslighted, it likely made you question your own reality. Gaslighting, for example, is when someone denies your reality so much so that you start to doubt your own memory or instincts. Psychologists know that people who experience gaslighting or similar manipulation often feel that they cannot trust their own opinions or views, leading to a constant need to second guess themselves. Imagine a partner constantly saying, "You're overreacting. That never happened." Over time, you might start thinking, "Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I can't trust what I feel." Your inner voice gets silenced by the external abuse. So, when that relationship ends, you're left feeling totally disconnected from your intuition, like you don't even know how to listen to yourself anymore. Let's bring in a hypothetical example. Picture someone named Alex. This could be you or someone you know, could be anyone. Alex spent years in a relationship with a partner who constantly undermined his decisions. If Alex said, "I think I'll go back to school," his partner might respond, "Oh, please, you just fail or quit. You never stick to anything." If Alex felt upset about something, she'd say, "It's not a big deal. You're so sensitive. Stop overreacting." Over time, Alex began to second guess every decision and feeling. He'd think, "Well, maybe she's right. Maybe I do overreact. Maybe I can't make good choices." This is how a toxic relationship can break down self trust. You internalize the other person's negative voice as your own. By the time Alex left that relationship, he felt lost. He didn't trust himself to make even simple choices, like what to eat for dinner, without asking someone else's opinion. His inner voice had been drowned out for so long that he felt it had disappeared. We also have to talk about the inner critic, that little voice in your head that never seems satisfied. Where does it come from? Often, it's an echo of all the external criticism and doubts we've encountered, whether from parents, peers, or society. Over years, that echo sets up camp in our own mind. For example, if you were harshly judged growing up, you might have internalized that voice, and now you are the one judging yourself constantly. The inner critic takes a kernel of fear or truth and blows it out of proportion. It might say things like, "You don't know what you're doing. You're going to fail." Or, "Everyone will see how incompetent you are." This voice is very harsh and judgmental and causes a lot of emotional pain. And here's the tricky part. Sometimes we think that the solution is to just ignore that voice or run away from it. But avoiding the inner critic can actually undermine self trust. Why? Because if you're constantly running from that voice, maybe numbing out, distracting ourselves, or seeking reassurance from others, we never learn to stand up to it. It remains this monstrous, powerful presence in our minds. Part of rebuilding self trust will be learning how to relate to that inner critic differently. Not to let it run the show, but also not to fear it so much that we give it more power. We'll come back to this point later when we talk about other concrete methods. For now, I want you to reflect on your own life. Which of these roots resonate with you? Did something specific plant the seeds of your self doubt? Maybe it was a critical parent, a traumatic relationship, a failure that shook you, or a long period of feeling unheard. You don't have to have an answer right away, but just consider it. Recognizing the source of your self doubt can be painful, but it can also be liberating. It reminds you that self doubt is learned, not innate. No baby is born doubting itself. Somewhere along the way, you learned that you weren't trustworthy. And if it's learned, then it can be unlearned, right? Now, let's pause here for a few seconds. Think about one experience or influence in your past that you suspect might have contributed to your self doubt. Just acknowledge it. You don't have to say it out loud. You might even say softly to yourself, that was then. It made me doubt myself, but I don't have to carry that forever. Because you truly don't. The past shaped you, but the past does not have to define your future. As we move on, keep in mind that these roots explain why you feel the way you do, and they also point to how we can nurture new roots of self trust to grow. Now that we've talked about where self doubt might come from, let's look at what it actually does to you, especially to your mind and mental well being, when it's been going on for years and years. If you've lived in a state of self doubt for a long time, you probably know it's exhausting, but you might not realize that there are both psychological and even neurological reasons for that exhaustion. When self trust breaks down, your mind is often in a constant state of alarm. Remember that our brains are wired to keep us safe. Without a sense of trust in ourselves, the brain's fear center, the amygdala, goes into overdrive. Essentially, your brain starts treating everything like a potential threat because it doesn't trust you to handle things. Research on the neuroscience of self doubt shows that the amygdala becomes hyperactive when we are stuck in self doubt, sending out fear signals that put us on high alert. It's like a smoke alarm that never stops blaring, even when there's no fire. So you might experience anxiety in situations that normally shouldn't be that scary. Decision making becomes minefield because your brain is shouting, "Watch out, you'll get it wrong," at every turn. In those moments, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and decision making, can get overwhelmed by the fear signals. That's why you might find it incredibly hard to make choices. Your logical brain is being flooded with danger messages, even for simple decisions. Let's illustrate this with a common scenario. You need to make a decision, say whether to accept a new project at work, or maybe something as simple as choosing a venue for your birthday celebration. For someone with strong self trust, they might consider their options and decide in a reasonable time. But for someone deep in self doubt, the internal dialogue becomes chaotic. One part of your mind thinks, this could be fun, or this is a good opportunity. But the alarmist side immediately chimes in. But what if it's the wrong choice? What if I fail? What if I regret it? You end up overanalyzing every possible outcome. Perhaps you spend hours or days going back and forth, researching every little detail, far more than necessary, or you keep changing your mind. As one description puts it, when you lack self trust, making any decision, big or small, takes a lot of time and effort. You keep swinging back and forth between your options, not sure which way to go. You might seek out others' opinions, asking friends, family, maybe even strangers on the internet for advice, just to ensure that you are not messing up. And even after making the decision, you don't feel relief because you immediately start questioning it all over again. Did I really choose right? Maybe the other option would have been better. This constant second guessing is the hallmark of a mind that has lost trust in itself. When your self trust is broken, you also tend to experience a lot of negative self talk. That inner critic isn't quiet, it's shouting in your mental ear. You might have thoughts like, I'm so stupid for feeling this way. I'll never get it right. Or everyone else has it all together. What's wrong with me? Such self talk is brutal. Over time, it chips away at your self esteem and creates a lot of anxiety and sadness. In fact, chronic self doubt is linked to higher risk of anxiety and depression, as you become trapped in a loop of constant self criticism. Emotionally, you might feel on edge all the time because you're always waiting for the next thing to go wrong. Or you feel numb and detached because doubting yourself constantly is so draining that you just shut down. Let's not forget the physical and the behavioral impact too. Living in a state of self doubt is stressful. Your body might be pumping out stress hormones like cortisol frequently. Over the long term, this can lead to symptoms like insomnia because your mind won't shut off at night, chronic fatigue, or even a weakened immune system. You might notice you get sick more often or you just feel tired and tense most days. Behavior wise, many people with low self trust fall into patterns of avoidance and procrastination. Think about it. If you don't trust yourself to handle challenges, you'll likely avoid challenges whenever possible. You might procrastinate on important tasks because you're convinced you'll do a terrible job, or you avoid pursuing opportunities like a new job or a new dating opportunity because you're sure it will end in a failure. This avoidance might protect you from some short term anxiety, but in the long run, it backfires. Opportunities pass you by, and the lack of progress becomes proof in your mind of your inadequacy, feeding the self doubt even more. As a vicious cycle. Self doubt causes inaction or self sabotage, which then reinforces the belief that you are not capable. Let's consider another hypothetical example. Rena. Rena has long struggled with self doubt in her career. She's very good at her job, but whenever a chance of promotion or a high profile project comes up, she freezes. She thinks, I'm not ready. I'll probably mess it up. Others are better than me. So she either doesn't apply or she delays working on the application until the deadline passes. This is a form of self sabotage. Rena's doubt leads her to avoid opportunities that could actually prove her competence. On the outside, it might even look like laziness or lack of ambition, but internally, it's fear and lack of self trust. Over time, her career stalls. Maybe her manager even gives negative feedbacks. This feedback then further convinces Rena that, see, I'm not leadership material. I can't trust myself to succeed. It's heartbreaking because we can see from outside that Rena is capable. It's the self doubt causing her to hold back, not any true lack of skill, but in her mind, the failure to advance seems to confirm her worst thoughts about herself. Another thing that happens when self trust is broken is we often become overly dependent on others' validation. It's like if you can't trust your own judgment, you outsource it. You might constantly ask loved ones, do you think I did the right thing? What would you do? Do I look okay? Is my plan okay? Seeking reassurance becomes a habit. It's not just a one time thing. While little reassurance is normal for everyone, but when you have no self trust, it can become compulsive. The irony is, no matter how much others reassure you, it never fully lands, right? Sounds familiar? You might feel better for a few minutes when your friend tells you, yes, I think you made a good choice. But soon after, the doubts creep in again. Well, what if they're just saying that to be nice? Maybe I didn't tell them the whole story. Maybe if they knew this, then they'd think that I was wrong. And so you seek reassurance again and again. It's a never ending loop because the real issue is that you don't trust yourself. You end up giving away your power to others. In relationships, this can manifest as coming across insecure or needing constant validation, which can strain the relationship. Or on the flip side, some people respond to broken self trust by becoming hyper independent. They swing to the opposite extreme and decide, fine, I won't rely on anyone and I won't show any doubt. But inside, that doubt still festers. They're just suppressing it and often avoiding intimacy or vulnerability as a result. Either way, whether it's dependence or extreme independence, the root issue is an inner belief that I can't rely on myself. If we talk about it mentally, living with self doubt also means you're often stuck in the past or the future, but rarely in the present. What do I mean by that? I mean, you might spend a lot of time ruminating on past decisions, picking apart what you should have done differently, living in regret, or you spend a lot of time worrying about all the things that could go wrong in the future, living in a fear of hypothetical problems. When your mind is trapped in past regret or future fear, it's very hard to be grounded in the now. The present moment is where we actually experience life and where we make decisions and learn. But self doubt yanks you out of the present. You are replaying old mistakes or rehearsing future disasters. I read this somewhere. If we live in a consciousness of regret, we live in the past. If we are fearful of the possibility of future suffering, we are living in the future. While bouncing back and forth between the past and the future, we are missing the present. And if you're not present, you can't learn and you keep recycling through the same mistakes. This is a powerful insight, you know. Being stuck in that mental time travel actually prevents the learning and the growth that would help build self trust. It's like your mind is so busy judging yesterday or guarding against tomorrow that it won't let you do anything today. And today is the only place you can actually change anything. Okay, so to sum up, what happens to your mind and life when self trust breaks down is you live in a state of heightened fear and stress, you become indecisive, and mentally exhausted from all the second guessing. You likely avoid challenges and therefore feel stagnant. You talk to yourself in cruel ways, and you constantly seek external guidance because you don't value your own. It's a painful way to live, isn't it? I say this with deep compassion because if you're recognizing yourself in these descriptions, I know how heavy it can feel. Years of self doubt can feel like carrying 100-pound weight on your back every single day. But here's what I want you to take to heart: it is not a life sentence. Self doubt may feel ingrained, even hardwired, but the human brain and spirit are remarkably resilient and changeable. In fact, neuroscience gives us incredible hope here. The brain has something called neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural pathways and change how it functions based on new experiences. When we've taught a certain way for years, like doubting ourselves, our brain does wire that pattern in. It becomes a well trodden path. But with conscious practice, we can carve new paths. Just as negative patterns can consolidate in the brain, positive patterns can be built and strengthened. Each time you practice a new way of thinking or responding, say maybe catching a self critical thought and reframing it, you are literally weakening the old self doubt pathway and strengthening a new self trust pathway in your brain. Over time, that process can rewire your default mode. So even if right now your default is to doubt, a day can come when your default will be to trust yourself. It won't be magic or it won't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. It will be through small, consistent changes, like gently nudging your thoughts in a different direction, trying new behaviors or experiences, etc., etc. I mentioned this now to set the stage for our next section, the signs that you're ready to rebuild self trust, and then we'll move into the how of doing it. But as we go forward, keep this idea in mind: your brain can change, and you can change. Before moving on, let's do a quick check in. That was a lot to absorb, I know. Take a moment to notice how you feel now. Is any part of you feeling hopeful, hearing that change is possible? Or maybe you feel skeptical. This is just how I am. I mean, it's okay if you do. If hope feels out of reach right now, I will hold that hope for you until you can feel it yourself. Just know that nothing about your mindset is set in stone. Okay, so how do you know when you're ready to start rebuilding trust in yourself? The fact that you're here listening to this is actually one of the biggest signs. It shows that some part of you, even if it's small, believes things can be better. Maybe you're not 100% convinced, maybe you're still scared, but you're open to the possibility of change. That openness is huge. Give yourself credit for that. After years of self doubt, choosing to seek out guidance, like listening to this, means you haven't given up on yourself. Not completely, at least. There's a spark in you that wants to grow. Often, people become ready to rebuild self trust when they hit a point where they say, I just can't live like this anymore. Perhaps you've realized that the constant self questioning is causing you too much pain or holding you back from things you truly want. This realization can come in different forms. It might be a moment of frustration. For example, you catch yourself asking the fifth person in a row for advice on a personal decision and suddenly think, why can't I just decide? I'm so tired of this. Or maybe you notice the toll self doubt has taken on your relationships or your happiness, and you feel a surge of determination to change course. Sometimes the sign is as simple as awareness. You start to notice the patterns rather than just being swept up in them. Earlier, we talked about how your inner critic and self doubt operate. If you've begun to recognize, yes, I do that. I see how I beat myself up. I see how I hold myself back. That very recognition is a sign of readiness. Psychologists know that once you become aware of how you've been harming your self trust, it becomes more difficult to continue mistrusting yourself. The awareness itself starts breaking the cycle. Think of it this way, maybe. Imagine you've been driving a car with the parking brake on. You didn't realize, you just knew the car was trekking. Once you realize the brake is on, you're not going to keep driving that way. You're going to release it, right? In the same way, recognizing that inner pattern is holding you back means you can start to release it. It's not instantaneous, but awareness changes the game completely. Another sign you're ready to rebuild is that you've started to feel hope, even if faint. Maybe you read an article or heard a story of someone who overcame self doubt, and instead of thinking, that's nonsense, you thought that, I wonder if that could work for me. Or you find yourself imagining what it would be like to trust yourself, even if you're not there yet. That hope is a gentle tug forward. You might also notice positive shifts already beginning. For example, perhaps you've started keeping a small promise to yourself, like going for a short walk each day or journaling once a week, and you feel a tiny bit, like a tiny bit more confident each time you do it. Or you've dared to speak up once or twice in a situation where you'd normally stay silent. These little experiments indicate that deep down you want to trust yourself and you are testing the waters. It's also worth noting that readiness doesn't mean you won't have fear or doubt. Being ready to rebuild self trust doesn't feel like pure confidence. It often feels like fear plus determination. You might still hear that shaky voice saying, what if I can't do this? But alongside, it is another voice, maybe quiet but persistent, saying that I need to try. I deserve to try. One metaphor that I like is to think of it as standing on the edge of a swimming pool on a hot day. You've been sitting out feeling miserable in the heat. The water looks like it could cool you off, but you're afraid it might be too cold or that you can't swim. Being ready doesn't mean you suddenly stop fearing the water. It means you've reached a point where the relief of the cool water is worth risking the initial shock. So you dip a toe in, maybe you ease yourself down the ladder. You might shiver at first, but soon you're in and it feels refreshing. In the journey of rebuilding self trust, you don't have to cannonball in. If you're not ready, you can ease in. The key is that you're willing to step into the water despite the uncertainty. Let's identify a few concrete signs that you're ready or you're becoming ready. Number one is recognition of the problem. You can articulate, at least to yourself, that self doubt is an issue for you and that it's not how you want to live. You might have even said something like, I'm too hard on myself, or I know this constant doubt isn't normal or healthy. That recognition is a precursor to change. Number two is desire for something different. You feel a longing or yearning for confidence, for peace, or just a break from the second guessing. Number three, moments of frustration or anger used constructively. Sometimes getting a bit mad at our situation can propel change. If you've ever thought, enough, I can't keep doing this to myself, that anger can be refocused as motivation to try a new approach. It means you care about yourself and want better. Number four, willingness to seek help or tools. You might have started therapy, bought a self help book, clicked on this podcast, all signs that you're gathering resources. It takes courage to seek help. In doing so, you're absolutely trusting that you deserve help and that improvement is possible. Number five, small acts of courage. Maybe recently you did something scary even though you doubted yourself, like you attended a social event alone or you tried setting a boundary with someone. The outcome isn't as important as the fact that you tried. Those are huge signs that the real you is pushing up through the cracks of doubt, ready to grow. Now, I want to emphasize that you don't have to feel 100% ready to start. You just have to be willing. If you're listening and thinking, I do want to trust myself, but I'm also scared and not sure if I can, that's okay. That's normal. You can be both afraid and ready. In fact, ready in this context simply means you've acknowledged the need for change and that you're open to taking a step. The beautiful thing is that the very process of rebuilding trust will reinforce your readiness as you go. Each small success will make you more and more ready for the next. Take a moment right now, yes, right now, to acknowledge yourself. You are here. You are showing up for yourself in this moment. That matters so much. You might even quietly say to yourself, I am ready to learn to trust myself again. Or even, I am becoming ready to trust myself. If saying that feels like a stretch, try this. I am open to trusting myself. That's a gentle affirmation you can use. I am open to trusting myself. Notice how it feels to say it. No pressure. Just observe. If you have a journal handy and feel up to it, you could jot down a few signs in your own life that show you're ready or you're wanting to change. It could be as significant as starting therapy last month, or as subtle as I felt a spark of hope hearing that my brain can change. These are green shoots of self trust growing already. Remember, readiness is a spectrum, not a switch. You don't go from 0 to 100, it's more like a sunrise. Gradually, the light of awareness and willingness grows. And hey, the sun's already peeking over the horizon for you now. Let's move into the next part. What can you actually do step by step to rebuilding that trust in yourself? And don't worry, we'll keep it practical and gentle. So now let's talk about the methods to restore that inner trust. Rebuilding trust in yourself isn't about finding a single aha moment. It's about consistently showing up for yourself in small but meaningful ways. Here's how to begin. Number one is to start listening to yourself again. After years of self doubt, it's easy to lose touch with your own inner voice. Begin by pausing throughout the day to ask, what do I feel right now? Or what do I need? This helps you rebuild the bridge back to yourself. Try making small decisions without seeking validation from others, like what to eat, what to wear, or what to watch. These looks very tiny habits, but these are mini trust building reps that help you remember you are allowed to choose. Number two is keep small promises to yourself. Rebuilding trust isn't about huge wins. Initially, it's about proving to yourself in little ways that you can count on you. Pick a tiny promise each day, like as simple as drinking a glass of water in the morning. Maybe journal one paragraph at night, or that you go for a 5-minute walk. What matters is not the size of the promise, it's the consistency. So you want to set something that you'd be able to do consistently. That way, each time you follow through, you reinforce the message. I do what I say I'll do. And when you miss a day, don't punish yourself, okay? Just recommit. That's trust too. Learning to stay even when things go off track and taking the accountability of doing something or not doing something. Number three is reframe the inner critic. Self doubt is often just a loud inner critic, a voice that's grown over years of criticism, comparison, or fear. Start challenging its narrative. When you catch a harsh thought like, I always mess up, literally ask, is this entirely true? What else is also true? Rewriting these thoughts with balanced, truthful language helps create space for a more supportive inner voice to emerge. Over time, you replace blame with honesty and fear with understanding. Number four, practice self compassion. Trust doesn't thrive in harsh environments. If you constantly criticize yourself, your inner world becomes unsafe. Self compassion is about treating yourself the way you would treat a hurting friend. Oftentimes, it's so easy to help a hurting friend, but when you see yourself in the same shoe, you can't care for yourself the way you'd care for that friend. So try implementing more self compassion. Maybe try this 3-part method. Number one is to acknowledge your pain. Number two, remind yourself you're not alone. And number three, respond with kindness. This helps you strengthen your ability to keep going, even when things get hard. Number five for rebuilding your trust is create time and space to reconnect. Alone times help you rediscover your preferences, feelings, and needs. Don't keep yourself busy with all the things that you have to do, or with the meetings that you have, or with the friend gatherings that you have. Take some time for yourself. It could be as small as 5 minutes, but I would recommend at least 30 minutes doing something you enjoy alone, like walking, journaling, or just sitting in silence. This reminds you that your presence is enough. Boundaries are another key form of self respect. Each time you say no to something misaligned, you're saying yes to your inner voice. That reinforces your ability to protect your peace. Number six is get support that respects your autonomy. Trust grows from within, but support makes the path easier. Surround yourself with people who encourage you to grow, not those who dismiss your efforts or plant more doubt. It is really important to surround yourself with good people in general. But talking about this person, it could be a therapist, a close friend, a support group, or a book that speaks directly to your experience. Let external support reflect the self trust you're trying to build internally. Okay, now let's quickly talk about navigating the setbacks in the process. Setbacks are not failures, they are part of the rebuilding process. You will fall back into doubt sometimes, you'll overthink, you'll question your progress. When that happens, you don't have to stay in that loop. You can practice this. Firstly, normalize it. This is a part of change. Secondly, pause and reflect. What triggered this? What's familiar about it? What's different this time? Thirdly, apply compassion. Just how you would treat a friend or your best friend, speak to yourself gently. Reframe the spiral as a learning opportunity, not a personal flaw. And lastly, resume without punishment. Pick up your tools, reread a journal entry, repeat a calming routine, call a trusted person. Don't try to catch up, just return back. And while returning, or while in the process of returning, you don't have to think that, oh, I messed up. Now I have to punish myself by this thing or by that thing, or I'll do this because I messed up here. No, you don't have to do that. Okay? Every time you respond to a setback with care, you prove to yourself, I don't give up on me. That's trust. You made it through a deep and important journey in this episode. We've looked at why self trust breaks down, how to rebuild it through small steps, how to face the inevitable setbacks, and how to show yourself compassion all the way through. The truth is, the fact that you're here means you're already healing. You're already choosing to believe in the part of you that's ready to rise again. If there's one thing to remember, it's this: self trust is not about always getting it right, it's about staying in relationship with yourself even when it's hard. Let your voice be heard again, not perfectly, but honestly. Let your decisions reflect your values, not your fears. Let each small act of consistency be a vote for your inner strength. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from experience. And every day that you choose to listen to yourself, speak kindly to yourself, and show up, You're not just rebuilding trust, you are reclaiming your life. Thank you for being here, and remember, even when it's quiet, even when it's hard, you are still moving forward. I'm proud of you. Keep going. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.